Hi, so I'm Hugh McGuire, and the topic of discussion is the next generation of book creation and supply. And the bullet points that were in the program were collaboration, less waste, just in time. And Mark and I discussed how we wanted to do this, and we decided I'm going to try to keep my introductions can be a bit abstract and fairly short. Hopefully I can get it under 10 minutes. So if the timekeeper can show me at 8 minutes when I'm there. And then Mark's going to do a brief intro to the Espresso Book Machine, and then maybe, hopefully, we can have a nice discussion afterwards. So first, some background on me, and I think really when I look at the stuff I've been doing and have done, I think LibriVox is kind of the most interesting thing because we've really got a lot of experience. And LibriVox is a project that I started a number of years ago, and the idea was there was this big collection of public domain texts that were available on the web from Project Gutenberg. And those texts are available in digital format for free online, and they've been online long before books were a twinkle in Larry Page's eyes. So the idea with LibriVox was to take advantage of those texts and get volunteers to make audio recordings of those public domain texts and give them away for free. So it was one of these sort of funny projects that had these lofty ambitions to record all the public domain text, but it was sort of crazy at the time, and it was a couple of people, and then it evolved, and so we're now, I believe, the most prolific publisher of audiobooks in the world. We're putting out about 100 books a month. Our catalog is over 3,000 titles now, so we're doing about 1,000 a year. And what's really kind of interesting about this from a publishing perspective is, although audiobooks are a little bit different, and just a question I often ask, who thinks that audiobooks are cheating, just out of curiosity? Anyway, that doesn't really matter. But the point is that the production process for an audiobook is a lot like what you guys go through producing a book, where there are a lot of people involved, a lot of collaboration involved in small groups or bigger groups, and it happens over a long period of time. But so what's interesting about LibriVox is we started without being a publisher. We didn't have any idea how one is supposed to produce books or audiobooks or whatever, and so we just built with the tools that we had available, mostly free tools. So we ended up with really kind of complex workflow processes that are all online, and the kind of complexity I'm talking about, we just recently passed our 3,000th title, which was Brothers Karamazov, and that project took 4 years with over 300 people sort of popped in and out of the project to make recordings or not make recordings or help out with proof listening or various other kinds of things. So it was 300 people were involved in that, and finally, but one coordinator throughout the whole process, and then it was published 4 years later. So just to say that it's a complex process with a lot of moving parts, a lot like book publishing. Obviously, we use online distribution because it was a web project from the start, so you upload a file onto a server and people can download it. And then something, and I swear BookNet didn't force me to say this, but our catalog and metadata is available online, and that's actually been really interesting because our catalog, we have an open API for that, and so what's happened is people have started building apps around that, and then I believe the number 2 iPhone app right now is in the book category is an app called Audiobooks, and that's based entirely on our catalog from LibriVox. So that's LibriVox, and the last year or so I've been working in a more experimental way, I guess, because our actual experience of delivering isn't quite the same as LibriVox, but with BookOven, we're, as mentioned, building kind of ideas of what publishing collaboration might look like in the future, and the particular one that we've just released, little tool we've released recently is called Bite Size Edits, and I encourage you to go check that out. But anyway, so that's kind of a bit of background, and then I quickly just want to run through this abstract idea, and we've got here, this is pretty meta because that's actually a painting of a book by Duncan Hannah called Art in England, and you may recognize down here Ceci n'est pas un pipe from Magritte, and I've changed it to Ceci n'est pas un book. And the reason I did that is I think there's a fundamental shift that has to happen, I believe anyway, in the publishing business, in the making of books, is that the thing, and I wish I had an example of one, but that thing with pages and paper and cover and all that is not really what a book is. A book is something else. And fundamentally, we kind of know that. You change the font, you change the pages, you change the cover, but if the text is the same inside, you've still got the same book, and we understand that. And yet, I think that in the publishing business, there's still a sense that that is the thing that is to be produced. And the reason is we've all grown up. These kinds of things are the reason we're here. We love books. A book gets produced. That's the thing that publishers send to the bookstores, and it's things that bookstores give to readers. And of course, that's changing, but the change isn't that we also sell ebooks now. I think there's a more fundamental shift that's happening. And so the premise is really that, and this is, I think, easy for all of us to accept, that the content itself is much more important than the pages that the content is printed on. And pre-digital, we can agree with that idea, pre-digital and pre-online, but it's kind of, it doesn't have any real practical effects, right? Because you can say, well, this is the book, and maybe there's an abstract other kinds of things that the book could be, like in the mind of the reader or in the discussions people have or whatever, but these are abstract and philosophical differences. When you go to digital, there's actually a thing, kind of a thing, a collection of bits and bytes that can represent that book, that things can happen with. And I think that shift, thinking of the book, basically that thing that we love with pages and the book smell and all the things we love, is just one output of books that has been the biggest one recently, over the history of books, but is becoming, is going to be just one of the kinds of things that a book actually can be represented as. Right. So I think, I don't know, maybe this is all obvious to everyone, and it's always kind of hard to tell in these contexts, but here's just kind of a schematic of what I think a book is. So obviously we start with the words, and then there's the structure that goes along with that, so chapters and italics and all that kind of thing. And then maybe there's pictures and media that go in it. And then I think, again, from my perspective, I'm absolutely amazed when Michael was talking about Kobo's problems of getting structured data out of publishers. Again, I'm amazed just because at LibriVox it was so obvious. You know, we have a big, long collection of things that as soon as we start a book project, we just start filling in this long list of things that are associated with that book, like the author name, who's reading it, URLs pointing to Wikipedia, all sorts of stuff that you want to collect, and that's just part of our process, and then we're done. When we're done, we have a nice bibliographic data. So I think metadata is hugely, hugely important, and again, BookNet didn't tell me to say that. So that's kind of, this is sort of what a book actually is, and then we just have these different kinds of representations of what the book can be. So, whoops. The wrong direction. So it might be something like a web page, and you could call what Bookriff or what Ian's doing, those are like web page representations of a book. It could be an EPUB or an ebook or a Kindle book or whatever, and it's a print book, and then maybe it's audio, and then maybe there's a whole lot of other stuff that we don't really know yet. But what's really important is that print book is just a very small part of what a book actually is. And now with digital, we can encompass so much more of that. So print book, Cecine Puzzum book, that's not really enough because there's all this other stuff that we have to keep in mind. And I think really the idea, so where is this, what is this, and where does it go? And I think the answer is that goes in the cloud. And once you put this kind of core thing, if you've got all that in the cloud, it makes all the experimentation that everyone's been talking about today, whether it's Ian or Mark or Dominique earlier, it makes it so much easier to experiment with things if you start with that book being something that's in the cloud that you can spit out in all sorts of different formats in different ways. One of the really interesting ways to spit things out are out of Espresso Book Machine, so I'm going to turn over to Mark to talk about that. And that's me. I have about 50 URLs that I could give you, but there are some of them anyway. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Lefebvre, and I'm a huge Hugh McGuire fan, so I'm actually delighted I get to hang out with him for a little while. Trailblazing, you know the title. I actually like to think of it as how to stay alive in retail. I'm a bookseller. I want to sell books. So I'm going to basically talk, I'm a book nerd. I love them, and I love every sort of format they can possibly come in, including, yes, the printed book. I want to talk a little bit about why my little bookstore in Hamilton decided to invest in an Espresso Book Machine, and I'll walk you through all the wonderful, cool things we've done. What I really want to do is run through this so we can actually engage in a conversation, Hugh and myself and as many people as possible. So in 1931, the McMaster Campus Bookstore opened up. We had the monopoly on cigarettes and textbooks. It was phenomenal, very exciting time. 1932 to 1970s, expand, expand, expand. Students couldn't buy books anywhere but at our store, so woohoo. Came up in the 1980s with the moniker Titles. Didn't want to just be a campus bookstore. We wanted to be that cultural key to the community. The director at the time came up with that. Still people say, well, what'd you do that for? And I love the fact that the bookstore's name is Titles because I kind of like cute names for bookstores. The general book expansion happened there. 1996 was Hamilton's largest general interest bookstore with 40,000 titles in stock. And then 1997, Chapters in Ancaster opened up down the street. Yeah, okay, I was one of the managers there. Boasting 100,000 titles, so Titles was no longer the big titles place. And then this world's largest river showed up and started to dominate online book sales, and so I just want to give you, between 1998 and 2008, this is a quick summary of the general book sales at Titles Bookstore. Okay. So, general books is what we refer to in the academic book selling community as books people want to buy, as opposed to the books that you're forced to buy because your professor says, read this textbook. So that was our general book sales. In all honesty, hasn't turned a profit since in 10 years. I showed up there in 2006 as a passionate book lover, realizing I knew nothing about academic book selling. I still don't. I'm probably about 40 years away from learning anything about it. But what I've noticed the trends starting to show up in 2008 is for the first time in the history of academic book selling, textbook sales are starting to decline. That's scary. General book sales, well, you know where they are. And however, in my store, special orders, the best-selling department in our store by far is a department that doesn't exist in the store. Wow. Why do we have 40,000 titles? So the concept was, what's a bookseller to do? Well, you know what we did. We're finally getting beyond that tipping point phase, but really, hasn't it been like 10 years since we said, oh, the ebook is coming, the ebook is coming, digital is here. It's like, for God's sakes, could it happen already? So, you know, we were still at that sort of tipping point. The question is, do books even have a future? Well, of course they do, at least in my world. Enter the Espresso Book Machine. I don't think I have to explain what the machine is. It would fit on the stage with me. Might push me off. No, it would still fit on the stage with me. The version I have is a 2.0. We started with a 1.5. Makes trade paperback book in about 5 minutes on the spot from a digital file. Cool, isn't it? I developed a two-year business plan in 2008. At the time, wow, that was expensive. It took me about 6 months of following Todd Anderson around and saying, I want to be like him when I grow up. I never grew up, but I was able to at least purchase an Espresso Book Machine. I was able to convince the powers that be at McMaster that we should get one. The price has come down dramatically, but I was still optimistic, thinking that in 2 years we'd be able to pay for it. The pay for it wasn't just the books coming off the machine. It was the gawk factor, right? And in all honesty, the machine's done really well for itself, but everything else has done really well. Our corporate sales, for example, of McMaster crested merchandise and T-shirts and bags and stuff has increased because of the Espresso Book Machine. So the Espresso Book Machine helped you sell other stuff too, and that was part of the business plan. And it's been very successful for us. So you got your instant special orders. No longer just 40,000 books on the shelf, but a catalog of 1 million titles. Lower cost on textbooks. We would use the savings to pass along to students. That was our goal. And self-publishing services, and then, what's next? So November 2008, Isn't that a nice logo? Titles on demand, because I like the titles logo. The EBM arrives, and so does the media. That's what we were looking for. We wanted people to pay attention to us for the first time. So there's my great boss, Don, up in the corner. We're going to do Spectator, and we're all excited. And we never actually officially launched the Espresso Book Machine. We're still thinking. It's 2 years now, and we're thinking we should do a launch for it or something. We're too busy. We don't have time for the launch. I want to talk about success stories. How am I doing for time? Just want to close to 10? All righty. Textbooks. Playwrights Canada Press, small publisher in Canada, had a third-year English professor wanted to use this play. Called them up. Reading Hebron was the play. It was out of print. They had 3 in stock at the warehouse. Well, we needed 80. What is a bookseller to do? So fortunately, they were a small publisher. We gave them a call, said, hey, here's what we'd like to do. It's not feasible for them to print 1,000 copies of a book just to sell us 80 that we're probably going to return 50 of them anyways. I mean, you publishers, you know that. So they gave us the PDF of the book. We did a customized cover, slapped it together. We saved 30% off the original price of what the textbook was, so we passed that on to the students. Sold a lot of copies of this out-of-print book that neither the publisher nor the author was going to make any money on. So that, to me, was a huge success. Another textbook success story, working with traditional academic publishers like Primus from McGraw, where you can, very much like what you saw in the demo just before, is you can do your sort of customized version. This is an old-fashioned customized version of a textbook, but it kind of works. Prof picks out just the chapters they want, goes to a server, we pick it up. What I decided to do was put on the back of the book itself, because they didn't design anything, so I had to do my own cover. I put this is a collaboration between your professor, between the publisher, and between the bookstore. Here's what it saves you. What happened was, I'm not following the slides properly, I'm sorry. It was a custom textbook, no returns, bigger discount to store. Again, we passed that savings on to students. My sell-through on the first time we did this with a social psychology textbook, the year before was 50%, and it was a Primus that was purchased from McGraw, and then of course returned to them when it didn't sell. The sell-through after was 110%. I don't know how it happened that I sold more copies than people enrolled. Maybe it was such an inexpensive textbook comparatively that they lost it and bought another one. Or it's Social Psychology by Myers. It's a good book, actually. I read it 20 years ago, and you should read it again now. It's just great. But for some reason, people wanted to buy it. Open access. I love the concept of open textbooks. Also a member of CCRA, campusebookstore.com. We took the top adopted public domain titles across our 23 stores across Canada, put them out for free. Here's an EPUB, put it out for free. You can go to campusebookstore.com right now and download it. It's a nice, clean version of the textbook, so I encourage you to go check it out. It's really fun. Yet another great way to get free content. What we decided to do was, how about combining a free EPUB with a reasonably priced hard copy? And as you already know, when you think of things like BookRiff and SimTech and Flat World Knowledge, etc., it works. I took Think Python, thanks to our friends at Waterloo who had the adoption first. And the author said, no, you don't have to pay for it. It's open access. Knock yourself out. We said, well, we feel we should pay content owners for it. Said, okay, give us 15%. Sold the book for $17. Didn't think we'd sell a lot, but couldn't keep the thing on the shelf. We figured it was free. Who's going to buy the textbook? Lo and behold, it was under $20, so we just kept selling it and kept selling it. Another one was professors are using ELM at McMaster, which is for WebCT, and it's basically, again, a free resource where they can get the textbook for free, or we give it to them really, really cheap. I'm getting corporate orders from internal departments. Can I have 50 copies? I'm like, you realize it's a free PDF, right? Yeah, no, I want 50 copies. Oh, okay. So these are some of the public domain examples where we've worked with the library or the Alumni Association to help them make some money. Self-published authors, was not expecting this. I think you heard this morning. Oh my God, it's a lot of work. Here are some, and that's where I want you guys to help with this, because there's some phenomenal self-published content out there. I've been a bookseller for long enough to know that not all the self-published stuff is good. But in my experience, and I'm not saying this to exaggerate, but half the people who come to me and want to give me money to print books on the machine, I turn around and say, you should bring this to a real publisher because this is good. And I don't say that lightly. Me Minus 173 was one of the first ones we did, and she actually, the book had gone through the rounds with 5 different major publishers, except they'd already published a book like that recently. So it got as far as the editorial board. She said, you know what, I've been waiting for 5 years to do this book. I want to tell my story. And oh my God, she's actually coming back in to buy more copies because she keeps printing them and selling them, and I'm quite delighted with that. I look at this as a way to improve the supply chain. Here's a cool example for book-loving people everywhere. 10 a.m. on June 16th, 2009, Catherine Wiebe, McMaster graduate, Daily News story. Daily News is the main website for the university, so everyone who kind of logs in first sees that. She's got a new book out. Cool. Bane of booksellers everywhere. Damn, Oprah just talked about something. I don't know about it yet. Same sort of thing happened. So by noon, customers were phoning and coming in and emailing us saying, do you have the book? Do you have the book? I was like, God, I'd never heard of it before this morning. So by 12:30, I called the publisher, who happens to be a smaller publisher in Toronto. By 12:45, we made an agreement, faxed a quick contract back and forth. Files were sent. By 3 o'clock, book is printed in our store. Fastest special order I've ever had the privilege of doing. What an exciting thing. And then, of course, Catherine came along a little bit later and did a book signing at the store, so we were very excited to have that. So we sat her in front of the machine, and as you can see, Tiffany, who was the staff member who was operating the machine, was a little shy. So she's hiding behind Catherine's book. But I love that sort of thing. This is Blue Butterfly Books, very small imprint. They could move very, very fast. And I love the concept of being able to work with publishers that way to get the customer the book as quickly as possible. We're a distribution of custom novels for a UK publisher, U-Star Books and Novels. Get ready, this is going to get racy. So, erotic adult romance, personalized, starring you, starring whoever else you want, you know. So I did a great one, you know, with Pamela Anderson myself. No, I did just it's a. I got a call from the John Reeder of U-Star Books, and he said, "You have an Espresso Book Machine?" I said, "Yes, I did. Thanks for your call." And he said, "I have a lot of customers in Canada. Would you be willing to print my books and ship them? Because I don't want to ship them from across the ocean." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So we agreed on a price, and wow, Valentine's Day was crazy. You know, the shipping costs are a lot cheaper within Canada. And so you know what, the thing is, this was so successful, I was so happy to pass on orders to my buddy Todd over at U of A so he could take care of the other half of the country. May, I'm going to be sending you some orders soon. You don't want to touch the erotica stuff, but come on, it's really good stuff. But here, they also do classics. So you can star in Dracula, or A Christmas Carol, or Romeo and Juliet. So they're branching out. Of course, their best-selling books happen to be the exciting adult erotica. But again, it's huge, and I can't wait till there's more Espresso Book Machines around, so I don't have to do all the orders because, my God, it's killing me. Again, last minute, no problem. There's a lecture going on in Hamilton today. The organizers at McMaster, it's the Author in the City program, they forgot to tell the bookstore. So I had a faculty member show up on Friday and say, "Hey, what's going on? I haven't heard back from you guys about the book." And I was like, "What book?" So I looked into it. So I found out on Friday, contacted the publisher Paradigm I contacted UTP, of course, and they said, "Well, it's a $92 hardcover. It'll be available. We can get it in 3 weeks." And it was like, crap. And UTP just worked magic for me the week before on a similar project where they got me the books the same day. So the distribution that we have does still work. But this was a case where it was absolutely impossible to get the books. And my God, they were expensive, and I didn't know if we'd be able to sell any. So when I talked to them, they said, "Well, the trade paperback is going to be out in the fall." And I was like, "Okay, I got the authors in Hamilton tonight, or next Thursday. I want to sell their books. It'd be nice to support them that way." So we made a special print-on-demand McMaster edition of the book, and today, actually all afternoon, my staff are printing the book. They started yesterday, so we can have enough stock for the event tonight. So again, it was one of the things where historically we weren't able to do this, but we did now. New ventures in publishing. Just going to go through this really quickly. Campus Chills. It's a book that we put together. University of Alberta, Waterloo, and McMaster thought we would pay professional rates to authors to write scary stories set on campuses. I happen to write horror stories in my spare time. It's easy when you work in a bookstore. We did this as an investment. One year between the idea where I said, hey, May, want to invest some money in something cool? Hey, Todd, want to invest some money in something cool? So we decided to split the costs. So October 22nd, we did simultaneous book launches in Hamilton, Waterloo, and Edmonton using the Espresso Book Machines, and with some friends of ours, Bookstore in Halifax and one in Ottawa. So we actually had all 13 contributors launching the book in 5 different locations. That's pretty damn sexy. Imagine what a real publisher could do if we could pull this off. So that was just an experiment that seems to have worked. I'd love to see people who actually publish stuff do it, not booksellers. We're not publishers, for God's sakes. New ventures in publishing, that's BookOven.com. I look at things like that. I look at BookRiff. I look at, so there's a nice logo, isn't it? We make books. Online collaborative effort, global resources, LibreVox model. It works really, really well. Imagine creating a book entirely using this and an Espresso Book Machine. So the question I'm going to ask is anyone out there brave enough to give it a shot and say, next year at the BookNet Canada Tech Forum, can we launch a book that was created using an online collaborative resource like this, and can print them and I can bring some in and we can get all excited? And just a thought. New business, new revenue. It's the first time in history that booksellers and publishers can truly combine forces, and I really do want to work with publishers and authors to get the content into the hands of consumers. And we're limited only by our imaginations. And I think this is my last slide, where you can kind of check out all the bizarre stuff that I do online. Thank you so much. What I really want to do is I really want to engage you guys in some questions and conversation on how we can all work together. Thank you very much. I'm just a bookseller. I don't know these technical. You know what? I think it's just a matter of years. Where they're going to be more affordable and smaller and able to be located in more retail. I wish Brian Prince down the street had a machine so I could send him some of the business, because sometimes it's overwhelming.
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a demo a bit later about bite-sized edits, but it was this funny thing. So we had this idea that people would be collaborating on making books, and one of the problems of getting a book out that's in good shape is proofreading. And so we had this idea that one way to deal with proofreading, if you don't have a professional proofreader on board, is to take all the sentences in a text, chop it up into pieces, and serve those randomly to either a small group of editors or the world at large. And what we noticed within BookOven was that was where, if people were spending time doing that was really engaging them, spending a lot of time on BookOven. So what we did is we've actually spending almost all our time now focusing on bite-sized edits, and we've carved that out, and it's now its own independent site. And we've kind of positioned it less as a proofreading tool and more as almost a, what was just called recently by the New Yorker, a video game for copy editors, so people who love words. And so we're kind of exploring this idea of how people can start playing with words and texts and books in ways that were unimaginable before the world of digital. So that's bite-sized edits. And again, I'll show it later in the afternoon.
And I have fun playing on bite-sized edits.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
lots of fun.
Yeah. Who knew that copywriting and proofreading was actually fun?
Well, one of the advantages, whenever a client approaches, I make sure they're aware of all their options. There is a iUniverse. There's all these other places where you can do this. One of the reasons they keep coming back or they want to use us is they don't have to go approach a bookstore after they get it done. We immediately put the book for sale if they choose. Some choose not to. They just want to print their biography and give it to their 5 grandkids. Other people choose, yeah, sell it in the bookstore. I pay you the difference between your cost and whatever retail you tell me you want to charge. Getting orders from all over North America where we're actually printing and shipping them. So they're saying, well, if someone can take Visa, I don't want to have to deal with that. I'll just let them worry about it. Even working with Kobo Books, for example, where our clients now have their ebooks available through Kobo Books. So Me Minus 173, if you want to buy it right now on your smartphone, it's a phenomenal book. Highly recommend it, and I don't like biographies, but it's a phenomenal book. And again, it's available through our store. Alicia also does speaking, so she prints the book and sells it herself when she does motivational speaking, and then it's also available as an ebook. So it's kind of we'll kind of go wherever the author is willing to. We'd love to have the authors do an event in the store. We don't charge for that at all. We basically, there's a $75 setup fee that gets you an ISBN if you want one. We charge per page. We agree upon a price that, you know, is good for the author and good for us. And we just go. It's like, well, let's do a book launch. And I think May at Waterloo, you guys are doing the same sort of thing, right? But cool, I get $250 just to do a book event? Wow. By default, we go with a 20-pound stock. If we go with a thinner book, we tend to go with a thicker stock. One of the samples I'm going to bring out here is an artist who wanted a 32-pound stock, and because, you know, the cartoons in the book were, you know, it was important to him that you didn't see through the paper. One of our authors wanted 30% recycled. I was told you couldn't run that through the machine, couldn't reach even 10%, but, you know, we just try everything, and we just did a fun book where we just decided to do each chapter a different color. So interior, there's all kinds of choice for paper stock. The exterior, we're kind of limited to a photographic quality paper, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, so this year, just in Espresso Book Machine sales alone, I'm going to crack over $100,000 just in the year that's shaping up. But I also look at all the other business that it's brought, especially some of the corporate sales to departments that never paid attention to us before. We got their attention finally, and they're coming and buying stuff from us. So I think we've made our money back. I haven't made all the money back on the machine yet, but we certainly made our money back in total. If I can find a way to get, you know, use bite-size edits in BookOven to, you know, then we'll make even more. Okay, so I think I made $30 so far on the ones that come through the regular channels. I just turned on the ExpressNet catalog. There's some issues with having access to the full catalog. So if I go on the Harvard University Bookstore website, I can find titles that you can't find yet in Canada because there's no Canadian price. In all honesty, I haven't really made anything off that yet. And I was fully expecting that would be 90% of our business. It's going to get there, I'm sure of it. But right now, it's all this other exciting custom stuff that people want to do. Anyone giving it some thought on how they want to sponsor like a book that can be launched at, you know, 16 locations around the world all at the same time, created collaboratively online? You'd like to do that? Thank you. We're going to chat, aren't we? Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Because you know what? I love doing the book. I've edited books before for publishers. This was the first time where all I did was I called 13 writers and I said, need you to write a horror story set on a campus anywhere in the world. Go. Are you in? Yeah, I'm in. Okay, we'll pay you pro rates. Good. Get me something by this date. And I was scared because before it was a giant slush pile where you got to choose, and that's a challenging process that takes all your time and effort. And I got back some phenomenal stuff from, you know, world-renowned horror authors as well, and I'm quite proud of them. One of them is nominated for Canadian Science Fiction Award. Waterloo author Douglas Smith is nominated for Best Short Form for his story Radio Nowhere, which takes place at the radio station at Waterloo. And so we're quite excited that the quality that we got just by this little experiment was something that we can be really, really proud of. By the way, you know, you can buy Campus Chills from Kobo.com if you want to get a $9.99 version, or it's a $20 paperback as well. But I'm not doing any sort of sales pitch right now. Vote for Doug. Wouldn't it be cool if Waterloo won? I mean, Doug won?
I have a question. Do you think that in some time frame, every bookstore is going to have one of these? And what would that time frame be if the answer is yes?
I would love. I'm thinking within a span of 5 to 10 years, it's going to be more feasible for more bookstores everywhere to have a machine like that. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. It's just kind of like the digital book thing, right? We're just seeing the starting of it. And again, as much as I love, I'm got an ebook on my hip. I got one in my bag at the side of the room, and I've got 2 other ebook reading devices, which we argued about last night. But I still love the printed book. I'm a book nerd. That's what it comes down to, and I'm going to love the book in whatever form it comes in. I still prefer the paper copy, so I'm a little biased. And I think that having access to a publisher's entire backlist, print on demand, is pretty damn sexy. You can walk into the store and say, oh, can I get that Dundurn Press title from 3 years ago? Yeah, sure, I can make it for you in 5 minutes. Come on in. Have a coffee. Oh, I can maybe... yeah. We can do it for you already. If it's in the archives at the McMaster Library, we'll call them up. They'll scan it. They have a Kirtas scanner that'll scan a book in about 15 minutes, and we'll make you your own custom version if you want. We're very careful not to violate the copyright because we don't want to lose our access copyright license, because then we wouldn't be able to help students save money on course packs and stuff like that. So I always play cautionary and make sure that make sure that we're not violating anyone's copyright. We use copyright clearance, so if it's out of print, but it was out of print in 1970, we contact the publisher, get permission, and we register, okay, we want $10 for every one we make, so we build that into the price and say, okay, $10 copyright fee, and print charge is this is what you're going to pay for it. So we've done those kinds of things. It's really cool. I love it. I'm very excited about it, as you can tell. So what devices are you reading on now? Just trying to get them going.
I read mostly on my iPhone and occasionally those paper things as well.
That paper thing, yeah. No, you guys got Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crush It. If you haven't read it, it's one that I would highly recommend that you read. We don't have it yet available on the Espresso Book Machine, but I'm working on it. But it is you read that one?
Not yet.
Oh, it's awesome. It's a great book. Especially for people in the book industry. You guys are probably passionate about what you do and you kind of like it. That's what Gary's all about. He's about following your passion, so you probably find a really good synergy between his point of view and what we all believe in, right? Because we do believe that this cultural community that we're a part of is definitely worthwhile. At least that's why I'm here. I think Hugh's pretty passionate.
I'd say so, yeah.
Excellent. Oh my God, it's crazy. During textbook season, when we have lots of demand for lots of titles, that's probably going to happen soon. We've only had like 12 adoptions in January, so it's not a lot of titles. Here's the bad news. Here's the good news. You make a book in 5 minutes. The bad news is you make a book in 5 minutes. So it's not a full-scale production press. It takes me an 8-hour shift to do 100 books. So I have people come in and go, okay, that was great. Can you make me 1,000 now? Oh, God. Yeah, it's going to take me a few days. We haven't run it 24 hours a day yet, but that's where it's time to work with a real printer, like a full-scale production printer. I mean, I want this to be cost-effective for the content owners. I don't want it to be cost-prohibitive. So it's a great price for 10 to 20 to 100 books. It's not a great price if you want 5,000. You can get a great price if you want 5,000 the traditional way. Of course, it'd be cool if you came to me, but again. May and I did the Owen Sound Bookstore did a book a little while ago. They have a book club where the writers met every Tuesday, or was it Thursday? Every second? I can't remember the title. I'm so embarrassed. But they called up and said, we want to do a book launch. They actually, Joseph Boyden gave them a reprint story as well, so that was kind of cool too. Plus the local writers from their Owen Sound Bookstore. And we printed the book for them. They had a book launch scheduled for the Saturday. They're like, oh, we suddenly need 200. And it was like the last day, and I had other jobs in the queue, and it was like, I can only squeeze out 100. So I called May at Waterloo and said, think you could do 100? And so I asked Hazel, I said, do you mind if you pay shipping twice? Because you're going to pay shipping from Waterloo, and then you're going to pay shipping from McMaster. And she's like, yeah, fine, if I can get the 200 copies. So again, it's collaboration between the content owners, who were in that sense the publisher, between the bookstores willing to work together and not be all greedy, saying, oh, I want it all. And that sort of collaborative effort is really the spirit of what I'm seeing today, and what I always see when I come to these sort of sessions is that's where we're going to win if we work with each other and we collaborate. I digressed, but hopefully it answers your question about the quantity. When you look at the actual raw cost that you can get from Lightning Source, in all honesty, they have full-scale production presses. They can always beat us on the raw low costs, especially for higher volumes. So in all honesty, I doubt we'd ever be that competitive. What we really can do, and again, this was one of the things that I initially thought of, is I went, okay, so Amazon ships in 24 hours. You want the book in 15 minutes? And that was that's again one of the reasons why I thought we're going to make all our money on these special orders, and we really haven't made much yet there. So I don't think you can ever be competitive as a deep-pocketed organization like that, but you can certainly offer something within your own community that people really love, whether it's that collaborative effort amongst a group of writers, whether it's my own biography, whether it's a custom erotic romance novel, whether it's just a customized version of Frankenstein where, as a faculty member, I wrote the introduction to it. Or maybe I created it on BookRiff, and BookRiff sent me the file, and I just printed it locally for my own community, or something like that. And I've started to do that, especially when I see it's a Lightning Source title. I'll run over to the EBM catalog and say, well, maybe I can get it here sooner than a few days from now. And that's really exciting. Again, I'm kind of afraid of what that's going to mean in terms of our business model and the way we operate. Like, we're going to have some chairs or something where people can sit down and get comfortable while they wait for their books. Or, just like the butcher shop, right? Take a number, because the demand will eventually get there. That's why I'm looking at not, was it a good idea to buy the machine, but when am I going to buy this second machine? That's smaller, of course. It takes up less room.